Thanks, Las Ciancórla. Las Ciancórla, you have to wonder at a time like this what the point of this chamber is really, don't you? Deputy Finian McGrath has put an extremely important motion before the House, supported by many people in the technical group. And as I look across the chamber, I see that the government's overwhelming majority is represented by one very capable Deputy Minister O'Sullivan. But we don't have any senior ministers, we don't have any government TDs. I wonder what those in the gallery, Las Ciancórla, think of a bunch of TDs standing up and talking into the air on an issue as important as disability and the cuts to the disability sector. Each one of these empty seats costs the people of Ireland about €250,000 a year. And standing up here right now, it comes as no surprise to me that the citizens of Ireland have less and less faith in their elected representatives. Nonetheless, the motion before the House is extremely important, and I would like to congratulate Deputy McGrath for bringing it forward. His motion does three things. It recognises the scale of support provided by the disability sector. It highlights the variety of cuts that have been imposed on that sector. And it calls on the government to both reverse one recent decision on the mobility grant, to honour its commitment to treat people with disability in our state with the respect and dignity that is their right and that they deserve. Deputy McGrath's motion points out that 13% of the population is coping with a disability, and that 1 in 25 people is providing unpaid care for people with disabilities. And shockingly, that 1 in 50 carers in Ireland is under the age of 15. But what's happened to the sector? Since 2008, it's had a 14% cut in funding. Now, when you factor in inflation, that equates to a 20% cut in real purchasing power for the sector. Now, a lot of organisations have 85% of their budget locked into pay and pensions. Under Croke Park, not only can they not replace their staff, they have to give pay rises. So you've got service providers being hit with huge cuts, and they have to take all of that from 15% of their budget. The result, as every deputy in this House knows, is huge problems, both for the service providers and, more critically, obviously, for those who they support. Now, the most recent cut is to the mobility grant. Now, I accept the Ombudsman's finding, and I accept that the government has to act. But as Deputy Collins pointed out, the figures are spurious. I took a look. Now, currently, the two grants we're talking about, Mobility Allowance and Motorised Transport Grant, cost about €10 million a year. 2011, €10 million. And the figure from the government is that increasing this for over 65s, or including those over 65, could add a further €300 million. So from €10 million to over €310 million. Now, that sounds pretty dodgy to me. However, the numbers are nonetheless large, and there's very little money around. So I accept that any response has to be taken seriously, and it has to be done in a very careful manner that doesn't incur a cost of €300 million on the state per year. However, to cease the current grant, which is less than €1 million a month, whilst trying to figure out what the new scheme should be, is unacceptable. There is no reason why this government couldn't have simply continued it and then come in with a new scheme. Now, I do not doubt Minister Lynch's commitment. I've heard her speak with passion and expertise on the issue of disability in this House many times. But she's not a full minister. And when one looks at the cuts that have come and the way that they have been imposed, one cannot but conclude that the disability sector is not receiving the priority that it should have from both this government and the previous government. The choices we make in crisis will determine our character as a nation. It's easy to give money out when there's lots of money around and when we're borrowing too much of it. That's easy. But the choices we make now will determine our social values.
1 minute remaining.
And right now, history is going to look back on this Dáil and on the last Dáil. And it's going to say that the elected representatives of the people of Ireland chose to take money away from disabled children at the same time that they paid tens of billions of euro to professional financial investors. Now, this government can still change that. It still has time. That is the choice that it faces. And I hope that Minister Riley and Minister Lynch and the Taoiseach and Minister Noonan and Howlin will do everything that they can in this area. Les Kincorl, I'd like to use the last bit of time I have to make a special plea for St Catherine's in Wicklow. It provides a phenomenal service to the people of Wicklow and recently had to put 58 staff on notice, which is going to have very serious consequences. And Minister Lynch has been engaging in good faith with myself and the other Wicklow TDs on this, and I have an ask that I would like to put on the record on behalf of that institution. And that is that the funding for the 58 staff is provided to the end of the school term. Things have to change. I appreciate that, and there have been governance issues. I appreciate that. And this is not the fault of the HSE. However, taking those 58 teachers out mid-term is going to cause an awful lot of distress and disruption to the pupils in there. So I have an ask that just at the end of the school term, emergency funding is provided that allows the school continue, it minimises any disruption, and it gives the new board time to come up with a new plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.